Kryn. Soon, I am so excited to be able to jump back into Dragonlance, re-imaged for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And before we talk about stats, and this is totally a matter of opinion, I'm curious to see how those are going to play out. And I'm still not quite sold on some of those stats. But in exploring Kryn for 5th edition, I'm excited for it. I'm excited because when we have these new settings updated, like Ravenloft, we're bringing in classic D&D to take advantage of the nuances of the things that make 5th edition special, that make this version of D&D really shine. So to be able to have that synergy, I'm excited. And of course, the heroes of the Lance, maybe to play those heroes, maybe to play with those heroes, or quite frankly, in one of my Kryn campaigns, to play against those heroes. It was very, very exciting to be a Dragon High Lord laying the smackdown on the heroes of the Lance, just taking care of what apparently nobody else could take care of. A lot of amazing role-playing opportunities. So I am so excited to jump into that. But let's talk stats. So the question that's always seemed to exist, and this is the first question I'm going to turn over to you guys, is it Raistlin or Raistlin? That argument has been going on forever. And I know what Wiki says, and I know what the community says, but you still kind of see that persist left or right. And I'm curious to see up or down how that plays out with the name pronunciations, or even if they change them a little bit to suit 5th. But I was checking out his stats from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons again. And I say Advanced Dungeons & Dragons because that was the rule set genesis of Dragonlance, of Kryn. So this idea of here's what Dragonlance is, here are the stats. And the first thing that surprised me, this was after the test at the Tower of High Sorcery. Strength 10. Now I'm looking and saying, Strength 10? In AD&D stats, my understanding was 10 and 11 was like average human. You know, obviously there's adjustments up and down depending on the character you're playing, but that was kind of like average. You're not super strong, you're not super weak, you're average. A 10 after his just constitution was wrecked and destroyed. Constitution and strength having that synergy. I expected like a 9, an 8. You know, I'm not going to say 6, but a 9 or an 8. Then we get into Constitution 10. Now, I think they made Constitution 10 because one of the things as a magic user in AD&D, hit points, well, you know this, right? 1d4 for hit points. That's what you're coming in with the game. Modified by Constitution, but there were Constitution caps combined with THAC0 to hit armor class 0. It's a different armor hit system. Wizards, even with their blur, displacement, invisibility, ring of protection plus this, and various things that you can do, not being able to wear armor, you were never going to get your hit points up. On top of that, you didn't have other tricks like you have now coming from D&D 3.5, 3.x, where, not even talking about dipping into other classes, you could get evasion. You could take half damage. You could take no damage versus area effects and magic and fireball and stuff like that. Dragon breath. In AD&D, you had no such thing. It came down to straight up saving throws versus breath weapon versus ray versus wands versus effects. And that's where you had to kind of go. So thinking at that, and I have to say on a side note, I'm currently playing a barbarian, Fang Snarl. He's a Knoll barbarian I'm using the custom class for D&D 5. So he's not a proper Knoll. And what's interesting is you want to talk about stress. Stress is playing a barbarian, leveling up and rolling for hit points because you don't get a reroll. Okay, the odds, Fritz, the odds are like you're going to get a 5 or 6. Look, if you roll like a 10 or higher, it's awesome. If you roll a 1 or a 2, that's I can't whoa. So it's almost stressful. It's like I got to have someone else roll it. I say that because when you're playing a wizard or a magic user in AD&D, you've got 1d4. And it's like, yeah, look, I don't want to roll a 1 on a 1d4, but I don't have any hit points to begin with. So from that perspective, I think with them coming in at 10, to go any lower and now have negative modifiers for one of the most powerful magic users on Kryn, I mean, he'd get taken out by absolutely anything. Or I should say at this point, potentially, because this is War of the Lance, right? He's still wearing the red robes. So potentially one of the most powerful magic users in Kryn. But what would it really be? I think that would be like 8 or 7, or at least an 8. Because again, the getting shattered at the test at the Tower of High Sorcery. I'm just not seeing it. So right away, those two stats seem jacked up. Charisma, 15. Okay, charisma in AD&D was always an interesting stat because it influenced retainers and hirelings, and it seems like the perception of charisma now in D&D is like used car salesperson, where they're trying to sell you the impossible. I mean, we see this with a sorcerer, we see this with a bard, where you're like, okay, I'm going to try and bluff my way through this, and before I even roll the D20 with these ranks and this ability and this feat, I have a plus 25 to bluff. And you're like, wait, what? Oh, plus my charisma modifiers. So I think charisma, I know what it is, what it represents, but I think how it's played, and if I'm wrong in the comments, absolutely, I think how it's played is this idea of it allows you to somehow magically talk your way through the impossible, where charisma in AD&D was personal magnetism. And he had that with that whole mystique and wearing the robes and like his eyes and his golden skin and stuff like that. So I could see kind of an charisma versus anti-charisma. I could see that. So I'd keep it there. Intelligence 17. Now these are AD&D stats. Intelligence 17. What I think about that is you had to have a certain intelligence to cast certain spell levels in the current edition of D&D. And there was this, that existed in AD&D too. But there were no stat bumps. So it was entirely possible to play a magic user and level up and get spells and increase your hit points, but get to a point where you couldn't cast some of the higher level spells. You had many magic users that would be, intelligence 15, intelligence 16, and technically that's where they'd cap. They'd keep on leveling up, but they wouldn't have access to those spells. Now, being AD&D, you didn't get the automatic stat bumps and other things, easy mode like you get now. But look, it's Dungeons and Dragons. There's a workaround for everything. Just work with the DM. So would you want to blow a wish on that? Literally wish spells. And we would go on. I'm playing high level AD&D campaigns outside of Kryn. You would go on wish runs. You would get to a point in the game where you needed to really get an artifact or move up facing the gods or trying to get your stats up, and you would go on quests to gain a wish. And that's how you would level up. And it really, you had to work for it. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, I hit 3rd level, 4th level, here's my stat bump, here we go. Like, no. But I agree with the current edition of D&D on a side note of increasing stats, because it is possible to develop yourself as a character. It is possible to level up those stats. So intelligence 17, I think that fits. He's super smart. He's a powerful mage. I think it works out from there. But the other stats, I'm still not sure about. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm very, very curious about the re-imaging. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Agree or disagree on the stats? And as they include the heroes from the War of the Lance, how do you think they're going to play? And what role do you think they're going to play in this relaunched, rebooted, re-imaged Kryn?